Welcome to another episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains, and today we're going to talk about a character that you may or may not have heard quite a bit about on our shows in the past, and that's Crazy Jake. We're going to find out all about him from somebody who actually worked for him, Ron Feldman. So let's get at it.
When I first came here and I worked for Crazy Jake, I went back there and lived in his camp for three months, and I never came out. And it was the best months of the year. June, July, and August. It was like living in hell. And I wouldn't do it again. I had other guys with me. I wouldn't do it again, but it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Crazy Jake, Crazy Jake. You know, everybody talks about Crazy Jake. I've heard some wild stories about him.
Crazy Jake, Robert S. Jacobs is his name. I got to know him pretty well. I rode for him for 2.5 years. I worked for him for 2.5 years. He conned me for 2.5 years. Now, back then I had nothing to give him except labor. And, you know, I was there on his site and I was digging what he told me to do. But he was, I honestly believe if he made up, he was so smart that if he made up his mind, he could have been president of the United States. He was a very intelligent man. And there was a way to tell when he was lying. You had to watch his lips very carefully. When they started to move, you knew he was lying. So he always lied. But he always said, don't ever tell the small lie. People want to believe the big lie. You always tell the big lie because people want to believe in that. And I learned a lot from him. And I could have been the second best con man here if I wanted to be, but I chose, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that kind of stuff. I'm not dishonest. But he is one of the best colors of the mountain. He is, I hope his legacy lives on because he's a story in itself.
Well, he's living on in this show because we hear stories about him.
Matter of fact, there's very few people alive today that actually had any doings with him, that know him, that are left. But he pretty much was I'm going to tell you, he was actually a mentor to me of my life, one of them.
Well, you know, when I was growing up, going through junior high, high school and all that, and we would always talk about the people that were back there mining. We always thought they were just legends. I mean, here we are, we're in Mesa. What's her?
Celeste Jones.
Celeste Jones and Ed Piper.
Al Morrow.
Al Morrow. I actually went up to his mine. But you know, we didn't know these were real people. We didn't put names to these people. We just knew that they were up there and that it was dangerous and not to go back there. But I'm a native-born Mesa boy here. When we talked about the superstitions, that was it.
Yeah.
We had no idea what was behind it.
No. And most people today that come here as tourists, they think, well, how long does it take you to climb up that mountain? Well, what they're talking about is they want to go into superstitions. They said, no. That's one mountain of the whole Superstition range, which is 160,000 acres. You don't want to climb that mountain. So the conception of that, yeah, that's all there is.
I mean, and we grew up here.
Yeah.
You know, that's it.
Yeah.
We took it for granted.
Right.
And this was while that stuff was going on.
Matter of fact, all them damn streets in Mesa named after your family name, ain't they?
Well, that's a whole other story. But yeah, so you know, it's amazing that, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, but
There's always a nugget of truth in what people say about those mountains.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you hear a story it's based on something that was true.
That's correct.
But did Crazy Jake ever tell you about Marie Celeste Jones up there, or about Ed Piper?
He didn't actually know them.
Yeah.
He knew Al Morrow, of course, and a lot of them guys. He knew the Barkley. He knew Tex Barkley. He didn't actually know Tex. He knew Bill Barkley.
A lot of questions. I think the one on the top of my list is, did he ever kill someone?
Jake was a coward. He would have somebody else maybe kill somebody, but never, he didn't kill anybody.
Okay.
No. I backed him down one day. When Jake and I broke, I finally got tired of his bullshit and realized, I grew up and said, this guy's full of shit. He had my eyes glazed over for a while, for 2.5 years, you know. If he told me that bench, there was gold underneath it, I believed it. I didn't see it, but I believed it. Well, that changed. So we broke. And one day, he had sent, just what I'm telling you, one of the guys that was working for him at that time out in the mountains, he got him so pumped up about me being a rival and I'm doing this and I'm raiding his camp, that this guy shows up in my apartment with a gun and he's going to kill me. So basically that didn't happen. And by the time I got through with him, he believed me, not Crazy Jake. So I knew he was after me. This was 1967. And I always wore a gun. I still got one on myself right now. But I wore one on my hip, 6-gun. And I was in Bayless Shopping Center, if you remember that.
Bayless Shopping Center, the manager's name there was Charlie LeSueur.
Really?
He was
I don't remember
he was
that.
a cousin.
Okay. Bayless Shopping Center. Here's Al Morrow's, I think it was a 53 lime green Chevy sitting in the parking lot. Al Morrow's in it and Crazy Jake's in it. And I saw that. And this happened right after this guy come after me, and nobody's going to threaten me. And I walked up to the car, and I grabbed the handle of that door, and he grabbed the handle inside, and I says, "Get out there. We're going to have a goddamn gunfight. You sent that guy to do me bodily harm, and I'm going to kill you." And he screamed at the top of his lungs he wouldn't get out of the car. And Al Morrow drove off. He would not get out of the car. Jake was a coward.
Crazy Jake. Do you have any more?
A good friend of mine, I'll reiterate what I had said, that I worked and lived in the mountains with for Crazy Jake. We both did. Chuck Leing, he was from Texas. And we worked out there a year together, off and on. And I had started my own business, the OK Corral. And basically, it was just in the beginnings. But in 1973, Chuck Leing came to me and said, "Ron, I know where the Dutchman is, but it's on Crazy Jake's claims. And I'm going in and I'm going to find it." And he said, "I want you to come with me." And I said, "No, I can't at this time. I'm too busy. I got other obligations." Well, he went in, and one of Crazy Jake's guys that digged for him was an illegal immigrant, Mexican fella. And they got into probably, the guy couldn't speak English, he couldn't speak Spanish. They got into an argument, I'm sure. They drew down at each other, and the Mexican was faster and killed Chuck. Now, the Mexican guy stuffed Chuck in a crack. For 8 days, he was not found. Finally, he came out, and I believe what happened is he confessed to the murder, or to the killing. The authorities went back, got his body, and brought him out. Now, 1973, that's not long ago, really. We're still having gunfights. Unfortunately, we're still not having them. But that was a true happening. That did happen. And what always happened with Crazy Jake is no matter who was working for him, including myself, he'd pump you up. And everybody else was an enemy. And he'd get you so salivating towards that guy or that group of people that are mining out there that you'd go out, I won't even tell you those stories, but you'd go out and do things. Well, I'm sure that he fed this guy enough of stuff that when Chuck showed up and said, "I'm going to dig the Dutchman," and he says, no, you're not. And that's what happened. So, yeah, because of Jake, Chuck's dead.
Do you have any more?
Well, we had broke apart, as I said. I had not seen Jake for many, many years after that time, that confrontation, and he left in the parking lot. And one day I was at, you'll remember, Stuckey's, and getting fuel, and he pulls up. And it was like, "Oh, hi, Ron, how you doing?" Just as friendly. "Could you pack me into the mountains?" I said, "Sure, you want to pay the price?" So that went by, it never happened. So one day he calls me up again, and he said, "Hey, I have a surprise for you." And I'm thinking, at that time, he was living on Pecos and Alma School. I don't know if you remember that place. It was like, as far as I'm concerned, a mansion. It was not a castle, but the grounds were spectacular. And the home, it wasn't a house, it was just it was spectacular. And he was conning some doctor, I think, at the time.
Doctor? See, I'm thinking out there, Wolfswinkel and all of that stuff out
Doctor,
there.
Mom? Dr. Mom, maybe?
Doctor,
but anyway, he had this guy on a string, and he was living there like the little King Riley, you know? So he says, "Come on down to my little chateau." I'll never forget that. And So I did, and my wife and I went down there, and he treated us royally. And what the surprise was is a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in many years that I actually got involved with Crazy Jake, that went out there in the mountains with me to dig all those for a year or two, was Win Borden. Well, he had got Win Borden down to Arizona, to his place, and then we had a reunion, and so that was my surprise. So then, you know, okay, so that went along a little while, and then I bought this, I had this horse that I had bought. He was a stud horse, and he was very blooded, high-end horse. And I decided, this is not my cup of tea, I'm going to sell him. And at the time, now we're talking about a while ago, $3,500 was a lot of money for a horse. It is in some ways now. So I said, you know what? Crazy Jake's got a lot of bucks right now, I think. I wonder if he wants a horse. So I called him up. And he blustered over the phone, I want that horse, I'll give you cash. And I said, Jake, you got 24 hours to get here with the money. If you're not here, I'm gonna send him down the road to somebody else. He showed up, $3,500. So after that, I started packing with him a little while, packing for him in the mountains, which he paid me. And then next thing I know, he's in jail. And do you know the story behind that?
I've heard of him spending some time in jail.
Well, but when he was living over there, Bob Corbin was our attorney general at the time, and a good friend of mine, and a Dutchman hunter. And he was involved in some very, very nasty stuff, Jake. And basically what he was doing is he was filming sex porno tapes with young girls at that place. Mm-hmm. So that part of him is like really taboo to me. Well, Corbin told me this, and he went after Jake. Now, Jake put out that Collenborn and Corbin were after his Dutchman mine, and therefore they're trying to put him in jail. That was his story. Well, Corbin went after him to try and put him in jail, but you know, he went to all these, he found these women, some of them, which they were married, they were older, they didn't want to testify, they didn't want to, nothing. So, matter of fact, I had a young gal that used to work for us at our other place, and for years, she actually grew up, Jane and I raised her pretty much, her father had died, and she left, went to school, and she came out to my house one night, and she said, my God, I met a guy, he's going to put me through college, Ron. He's going to pay for everything. And I got a place to live, and I said, what's his name? Robert Jacobs. I said, Jeannie, you're not to go by that man ever again. And she never did. But see, she would have been another victim. So consequently, Corbin could not hang that charge on Jake. But what he did get is he got two different parties to step forward to say, he conned me out of money. And one was an oil company, small oil company. And they put him away for 7 years. And after 7 years, I think he got out maybe in 5 or 6, he showed up at my place. And he's telling me he's going to die because he's got heart problems. And of course, I didn't even believe that. And shortly thereafter, supposedly he passed away. But like Elvis Presley, he's been cited.
Still?
Not still.
Okay.
Not still, but back then he was.
Okay, so
Wasn't there a body?
Sure, all that stuff was there. All that stuff was documented. He had died. But people said, I saw Crazy Jake. People I know.
Hasn't there been other so-called Crazy Jakes up here?
Small times.
Small
yes.
time.
Chuck
small
Crawford
time.
was another one.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember Chuck Crawford.
No.
Yeah, Chuck Crawford was, everybody would pale to Crazy Jake. Nobody would even come up to him. But there's a lot of con men out there, yeah.
You know,
There still are.
So you see, the mysteries of the superstitions don't need to be just the mountains. They can be people as well, just as we've learned about Crazy Jake, another one of the mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.